I'm open for requests today about topics. Robin and Yarrow, I had one of our small groups yesterday. I did the Dharma talk on how all judgment is self-judgment, and that's always a high bar for people to get to, and then to live from that place so that you're free from projecting judgment out there is a huge piece of what we call waking up. So we can talk about that if does that work for everybody? We got yeses? Yeah, good.
Yes.
I'd request that, yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, the thing that came to mind when we were just sitting in meditation and living into the one who has exactly what that one wants. Yeah. The feeling of that. You can see the power of that as a creative possibility, because you're emitting the frequency of what I have. I am that. This is it. It's done. Yeah. And then that's the information into the quantum field that responds with, of course, the yes is built in. But when I was thinking about the way in which our self-judgment is so perpetuated throughout the fabric of our identities, the fabric of our interactions with others, the fabric of our lives, that self-judgment is so entrenched there. And I think about what I call the distortion field. There are many pointers to this in the New Testament. I don't know if it's Jesus or not, talking about we until we are awake, until we are home, we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. That glass darkly is the distortion field of our self-judgment. And William Blake's poetry said, we cleanse the doors of perception. We clear the perception, the judgment out of this distortion field, this self-judgment that then goes and we are seeing through that at every hand. What's the other one? Anna Isnin talking about, you do not see the world as it is, you see the world as you are. And so we have this built-in kind of hall of mirrors that is informed by our self-judgment. That lens is a distortion field because it gets created by that installed conclusion, I'm not good enough, I don't matter. So that self-judgment is installed, and now it's as if we have on, I used to say it was like a pair of glasses or a lens, but now I think more it's like contacts that are all scratched up and screwed up, right? And that distortion in the contact lenses is you're not good enough, you didn't do it right, there's something wrong with you, you'll never make it. So that is in the distortion field. And when we look through that and see the world, it reflects that back to us. And so then we are confirmed in believing that what we had concluded, I'm not good enough, I don't matter, was true, because I can prove it. That guy said it to me just last week. He told me I was a piece of shit and that I wasn't doing it right. So we have the reality that it's this external projection is going to be a reflection informed by our self-judgment is just mind-boggling at the heart of it, right? I mean, we've all dealt with our lives through many decades, some of us more than others, but we've all dealt with our lives showing us over and over that what we had believed about ourselves was true. We have created adaptive behaviors to avoid experiencing that. For some of us, we assert ourselves. I call it an asserted identity. It's what am I asserting that I want you to believe about me that I don't believe about myself, right? That asserted identity is a very common pattern to keep us from experience what we concluded about ourselves. So the self-judgment is pervasive. It creates a frequency that is a part of every aspect of our reality. And another thing that it's really contributing to all the time is that internal voice, that internal narrative of like, well, you fucked that up again. You didn't do it right. They're never going to call you back. Who do you think you are? That's that voice that's been running in there as a tape that probably got installed early on, 2, 3, 4 years old, so that it was trying to help us not screw up again, right? Because we'd already gotten punished for making the mess, for eating the cookies, for doing whatever. So now we've internalized some version of the parent to help us, like remind us, don't go in there now. You're going to get punished. But then that voice, as we get older and we get more sophisticated about how we perform, what we contribute, how we interact, how we relate, that voice gets to be more and more damning. And the frequency of that voice is resistance to ourselves. We've left ourselves now. And the other part of it is the frequency is resistance to what is. And so we're caught in the need to control. We're caught in the need, maybe for some of us, to hide. We're caught in the need of some adaptive behavior so that we don't experience what we installed with our earliest conclusion, our earliest self-judgment. So this inside job is diabolical, in a word, and absolutely pervasive. There isn't any way to get away from it. One of the things that happens with the work that we're doing in here, and the work that all of us who are attracted to being in a Sangha, in a group of awakening others, one of the things that we have available to us is the reminder of what it means to be on my own behalf, what it means to be kinder to myself, the realization that with that conclusion, I self-abandoned. Now my attention particles are out and my judgment is out and everything looks as if it needs to be different than it is. And that if I'd done it right, it would be different than it is. And since it's my fault, or the blame goes to the others. We can have a victim identity or we can have a perpetrator identity. Typically, we go back and forth between those, right? So it's the awareness of this inner narrative, this self-talk that keeps us from the awakening to peace and freedom and a deep, pervasive sense of well-being. That's what keeps us from it. If you'll notice, and you might notice this during meditation, or just when you are on the beach or having some time apart with yourself, you might notice that voice is not there, and what the peaceful feeling of the eternality of reality, the timelessness of reality. Without that inner narrative voice, we sink into and we disappear as a body mind, and we begin to have this ongoing, or at least in that moment when we've been on our own side enough to go apart, perhaps. For some of us, that doesn't work. It's not that's not always the solution. But for many of us, we don't have time alone. We don't have time with ourselves, within appreciation. And with that time alone, we have the opportunity to recognize that voice that's been running the show, maybe there's a little respite from it. Maybe there's a little space from it. There's a story about the West Virginia, I shall say it, hillbilly, got drafted into the service, and he'd had the diet of his culture and his family his whole life, which was very high fat and all kinds of things, right? And he got into the army, and he started having these regular meals with fairly, I'm sure it's not great, but compared to what he had been raised on, it was more consistent and it was more substantive. And then one night he came rushing into the ER, and the doctor said, "Son, what's wrong? What's going on?" He said, I'm dying. And he said, "What do you mean you're dying?" He said, "The fire in my belly's gone out." See, he had attributed that energy, that fire, that feeling of tension in his stomach from his diet, that was his life force. So we have attributed to that inner judge, that inner narrator, that's what runs us, that's what keeps us in line, that's what we have to pay attention to in order to be correct, in order to be acceptable, in order to be alive. So there's a huge shift. One of the fundamental shifts in waking up is the recognition of that internalized judge. And the moment that you recognize it, and in that moment you're able to observe it, become aware of it, then you are already relieving yourself of its ability to run things, of its ability to energetically, with the frequency of fear, inform your reality. We know what our frequency is by how we are feeling / thinking, right? When we're at peace, we know that. When we're happy, we know that. When we are contracted or feeling fearful, we know that. The thing that we cannot do consciously is that we cannot keep that frequency from impacting our reality. Whatever frequency we're emitting, we're frequency emitters. That's the nature of who we are. And consciousness carries the whole spectrum, right? Consciousness doesn't have a problem with you feeling less than. We have so anthropomorphized the idea of a God or an other or a judge that we think there is an opinion about us. There isn't. There's no opinion about what you experience. It's for you to see. What I experience when I believe I'm not good enough is a feeling of being shut down, of the feeling of being left out. That's a frequency of fear, right? So we have this internal guidance system that we have to begin to pay attention to. With the early wounding, we fundamentally self-abandoned. We turned our attention from here, this newly incarnated little being, right? And all of a sudden, the bottle didn't come on time, or mommy didn't show up on time for the feeding, and our attention is out like this. And what kicks in is the animal instinct for preservation. What kicks in next is an opinion about me. The me starts to be formed at that early experience of not getting what you need. And this, we're talking about survival here. So it's not that it's not real. That's a part of the cosmic joke of incarnating into a 3D reality based in fear. I mean, we've got it from the get-go, really. Now our attention particles are out, hoping mommy comes, or the nanny comes with a bottle, or daddy, or whatever. Our attention particles out, and then within us, we're coming to that place. It's like, what's wrong with me? I'm not getting fed. This is not a conscious narrative, but it's the experience of fear, right? I needed something and it didn't happen. So we're well on our way at that point. By the time we're 2, 3, 4 years old, we have language to go with it. I don't matter. I'm not good enough. There's something wrong with me. So now we've got an entire body-mind unit believing that it is who I am. It's created a me, and that me believes that she's a piece of shit, or that she doesn't matter, or whatever she's believing she is. That's the emission of the frequency of fear and self-rejection. And then when our friends don't call us back, or that guy that was really into me, I haven't heard from him in a month, right? Whatever. Like all of a sudden, our reality is reflecting that back to us. And we believe that it's the reality that we have to deal with, right? We want to fix the problem at the level that the problem was created or expressed. If he just understands that when I don't get called back, I really, I just don't feel good about myself. If he understands that, he'll call me back for sure. Don't count on it. Because if you believe that you're not good enough, your entire world will show that back to you. The kind of cosmic joke, part of it is, it will not only show you that part, it will show you the other, the other end of the stick for a minute. So all of a sudden it's like, oh, he really does love me. He really is getting me that diamond ring or whatever, right? And then the marriage comes along, and all of a sudden it's like, he's just not that into me. Right? I'm not putting up with this anymore. This is like slavery. I'm out of here. So the other end of the stick has come up. You see, we are caught. What we call the fall was our descent into fear, the frequency of separation and polarity. So that it was caught in the rational analytic mind, which delves into, it dwells in polarity, good and bad, right and wrong. So we don't get anything that we value without the other end being implied. So the truth of who you are, the one I know myself to be, is metta. If we use the baseline of that polarity, good and bad, if we use that as the baseline of the triangle, at the apex of that triangle is metta to that, and I am the one I am. And from that place, I can see what's happening. Knowing myself as that, I can function through this vehicle, through this body-mind unit in ways that are fun and happy. The purpose of having a body-mind unit is for fun, right? This makes me want to remind everybody that the day before Thanksgiving, you're supposed to overeat so that you have capacity on Thanksgiving. Some people don't know that. My mother was a great proponent of that. Eat an extra sandwich for lunch today. Yeah, so if it makes sense to everybody, the way in which what we conclude about ourselves is the information that creates our reality. This is amazing news. This should be on, not that anybody watches CNN anymore, but it should be on there. It should be on, what are some of those new ones? Ground News and all of these places where now you can get the truth. Yeah. No, we are the truth. Yeah.
Should be on Fox.
It should be on Fox. Right. Fox and Friends. Yeah, so this understanding brings us back to ourselves at first, and all of you have been along this path of having turned and coming back to yourself, and in that moment feeling like it's hopeless. It's like, what, I can't do anything about that. My mind's been running the show 50, 60, 70, 80 years, right? I'm not supposed to pay attention to that anymore. What happens then to what I'm supposed to be doing? Well, the interesting thing is that your mind has never been of any great service to you. It might be when you're putting in the GPS address. That could be a point at which it was a great service to you. But typically, your mind caught in polarity will leave you in confusion, or at best, it will lead you down a road that's not on your side because it was installed to keep you being limited. The mind was the outcome of our own self-judgment. I'm not good enough, I don't matter. And now its job is to like, don't talk out loud. They don't care what you think. Shut up, right? You don't need to be in front of the room. You don't need to participate in that fun party at Mulligan's. Just stay home. What do you think you are? You know, it's like that mind was put in place for a safety valve for a little one who believed that she wasn't good enough, right? So now we see the whole story. It's like, it's confounding in a way, isn't it? Oh, because we depend on the mind, and that was what the fall was all about, was falling out of our connection with reality and ourselves. From the place we live, from that place, we're happy and we're authentic and we're freely expressed. When the mind took over and the fear took over, now we are in caution and we're in limitation and we don't have the right to, or we will not be received, or they don't even notice if I'm there or not. And that's the job of the mind, and that's the narrative that's running, that when it falls away, and in any moment, now you may have many moments when it's not operative and you have the experience of freedom and ease and fun and peace. But when that narrative's running, it keeps you in tension. It keeps your attention particles out. Now it's like alert, alert. What are you missing here? No, she really did look at you funny. It's like, yeah, so you've got this constant inner voice. Without that, and then the moments that all of us in this room have had that were without that, we were in this phenomenal ocean of well-being, in this sense of ebullience and ease and peace. And and then there's nothing to get and nothing to avoid. And that's when you know that that's the opening into your true nature, when there's nothing to get and nothing to avoid, and this is it. And it's like glory. It's just that. So I'll open the floor for questions about that understanding, or anything else anybody wants to do, and are the 6 steps. Robert.
So a lot of people, especially in the self-growth area, talk about reducing the idea of being a victim. And I've worked on that for a long time and have at least made some progress there. But the whole idea of recognizing when you view yourself as the perpetrator or the person who made a mistake or screwed up. And so you're suggesting that we want to get away from that just as much as we want to get away from being the victim.
Right, it's kind of the other end of the stick, that old triangle we used to all pay attention to was victim, persecutor, rescuer. It's like we want to put that down. We don't need that kind of limiting identity. In fact, anything like that we attribute to ourselves, any label we attribute to ourselves will be a limitation. Because in the moment, with whatever's showing up in your life, you want to be an authentic expression. If you have an idea about yourself as being good or being kind or being loving, then you're going to likely be out of authenticity. And any bit out of authenticity is a lower frequency, right? It's moving toward a frequency of fear, because that self-concept, I'm good, I'm loving, I'm kind, that is an identity. It's not that those things are not true about who we truly are, but if we are experiencing them or needing them to identify as, then we're no longer authentically present. We're needing to get something. Typically, it will be approval. So there isn't any label that you need. There's no label that will serve you. You are life happening through this body-mind unit, which has gifts and talents and the fun of the expression, being an extrovert or being a whatever. What's that? Introvert. Yeah, introvert. Yeah. of being for yourself. It's for me. This incarnation is for you. It's not, it doesn't belong to anybody else. From this place of being on my own behalf, I will absolutely be a blessing to reality, because the high frequency of authenticity, no longer caught in a frequency of fear, needing to protect, needing to control, but back with myself in a frequency of connection, of happy, of peaceful, then that starts to shift. It's what I always say, we can create a new heaven and a new earth. The heaven is our way of being with ourselves within, and the new earth is this manifestation.
So Polly, if you've been a perpetrator in any way,
Mhm.
how do you reconcile that within yourself, or how do you see that as a trigger? Do you see that? How can we back into that to
Yeah.
liberate the identity that
Right.
grabs hold with
Yeah,
that?
you certainly could use the 6 steps, because whatever that incident was, maybe you were bad to your baby brother or whatever. And you have carried that sense of being a bad girl, being wrong, like a perpetrator, right? If you use the 6 steps on something that's showing up now, like maybe you're being accused of something.
Yeah, or maybe you did something that actually wasn't that
That's
great.
great, right? And yeah, so if you use that, that's a trigger. You use that to do the 6 steps. When you get to the place of what you concluded about yourself, it's gonna be, that's the, you see, the lens through which we behave and which we interact with out there, if it's distorted by I'm really good, or I'm a perpetrator, I'm bad, I didn't do it right, then that's what has to clear. And it was that installation with that early experience, when you did something bad, right? You really did take your brother's truck.
Really did smash my sister's finger in
I was
the
thinking about Heidi there for a minute.
in the door, yeah, I really did that.
Yeah, so you internalized that feeling of being a bad person, of perpetrating something. Yeah, so when you get to that and see that, you can, from the perspective of seeing that that's what happened, but it's not who you are, it's what you have had as a label, right? Then the forgiveness is the same. It's the shining of the light of awareness on what got installed, that little label, perpetrator, bad girl.
So, I mean, it sounds good.
Thank you.
But what about that slippery slope of doing like a spiritual bypass, or how?
Do you
How-
mean making doing something bad, like somebody sexually abuses somebody and they forgive themselves, but they don't really get that what they did was wrong, and they might do it again. Is that what you mean?
That's not exactly what I mean. I mean,
It's in that direction.
it's like we have an identity, we have to protect a good identity, right? So we did something bad over here, so now we're finally willing to look at it.
Mhm.
I'm willing to look at it, but I still don't want to identify as that. I want to protect myself from identifying as that. I'm just looking at, and I haven't done this with myself, looked at where I feel like I really did bad things. But to go to that place of true forgiveness without sliding over something. I don't know how to say this. It's like,
I hear what you're saying. Yeah, it is kind of a slippery slope of well, I forgive myself, right? And that's too flippant. It's too casual, right? Because you did really fuck up and they really did get hurt, right? But the reality is it's a much bigger picture. This is one of the things that makes all the difference in this work, is to realize what a huge picture is going on, right? In terms of all kinds of what in quantum physics we would call entanglement theory. There are different things coming together in ways that we can't know. Our job is to put as much light on whatever is impinging on us, and to see it for what it is, and to know ourselves as the awareness who has had this particular Netflix series or whatever, with the being a bad girl, crushing Heidi's finger, but knowing that
thanks
there's a
for rubbing that in.
yeah, I did want to be explicit about that. But the whole thing is to elevate. It's like who is seeing, because as awareness seeing something, you will be alerted to what you don't need to see, what you can't see, and that what you are doing here in this particular piece is a contribution to the larger reality, that all of it needs forgiveness. All of it needs forgiveness. And you do your part with your own sense of limitation, your own sense of being a perpetrator or a victim. And if you do slide by, if you do let yourself off the hook, which means that it's like, I forgive myself and I know that I know who I am, and like that, then it will come back around. We never can get ourselves free at the level of the problem. It won't work. And so the way reality works is a fail-safe, actually.
Is a what?
A fail-safe. You
Oh.
can't fuck it up.
Mhm.
You're gonna get it one way or the other. It's gonna land. It's gonna land. Yeah.
So Colleen has her hand up first, and then I'll go to you, G.
Mine's right about this.
Colleen, is yours right about this also?
I'm sorry, is it what?
Is your share about this as well?
Yes.
Oh, we'll go with her and then we'll go with you, G. Okay,
So yeah, I don't necessarily need an answer. It just felt like right to let this out and shine some light on it. So one thing I've realized recently, when I was young, there was so much intensity going on with abuse and neglect, and that I have a really great imagination, and so I used that as a child to just imagine the demise of my parents and in creative ways, and I feel like I'm still holding that. It's like my bad secret, you know, that I'm holding, that I wanted them to just, you know, die and be, yeah, lots of really bad things. And I just want to forgive myself for needing that escape. I know that I needed that escape. In doing that, it probably in some ways kept me sane. Um, yeah, but I just want to like try to integrate that big thing you were just talking about, like that entanglement and how that big picture, even if I don't know what it all is, to just allow the healing of that to happen.
Right. Yeah, and that is the field of allowing is where you are with this now. Are they both still alive, Colleen?
No.
Yeah, so the field of allowing is where you can move into that with self-forgiveness, right? And it's like, you know, ultimately all of us, 8.5 billion of us, are wounded children walking around in short pants and running the show, especially if we're white and male, and then families. And so there's a certain dynamic that's going on in this reality. But for you, at this deepest level of who you're being, what you want for yourself, you to the degree that you can't create this field of allowing in which you can experience the forgiveness of them, you are energetically against yourself. And that's what, if we can't be motivated by being high-minded and overarchingly forgiving, we can at least be enough on our own side to realize we don't want to drink that poison anymore.
Yeah.
Good for you, sweet.
And I feel like that I've really done a lot in forgiving them,
Love
letting go
that.
of that.
Yeah,
And now it's my turn.
yeah,
Thank
exactly.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cry free, yes.
thank you,
Yes,
Colleen.
yeah.
Okay, G and then Lara.
I am wearing short pants.
White male with
White
short
male is
pants.
short. Example A, yes.
So are the other gentlemen.
Yeah, in Hawaii.
There are 3 white male wearing shorts in this room, just so everybody knows.
But I was just kind of struck by the comments in the previous conversation. So the line, you hurt my feelings.
Mm.
Is really a victim protesting to an alleged perpetrator.
Right.
And so it's just kind of an shattering announcement, since so much of the conversation that people share with each other, I include myself and my beloved, and in couples counseling, it comes down to you did the worst thing first.
Right.
And so, at the level that we're trying to organize reality, that comment could elicit something in me like, what was my reaction? If I could get away with not judging it and just say, well, I experienced this, I said this, I could have said this. I mean, in other words, it could elicit a somewhat conscious or aware approach to the conversation. But trying to explain or defend or this is be a complete waste of time, because that would be right back into the perpetrator victim dynamic. Okay, so I want to make sure I understood that.
Yeah,
My actual topic was different than that.
okay,
We talked yesterday, about the house,
right,
that conversation. And so I was in a little meditation of what do we want? And then kind of translating that into like the inner experience of having that. So that was instrumental because one, I realized that what I want is to relax.
yeah.
I want to have fun.
Yes.
And then I remembered that Deborah and I bought a house 30 years ago. It was not the most relaxed experience I've ever had. And so there's almost like a little replay, like, I really don't want to go through that again. And so what I was looking for, and so then I was saying to myself, well, I feel pretty secure right now in our rental. And I could move up to quit looking at Deborah. Just quit looking at her. Trigger alert, trigger alert. But I'm just realizing, I think what happened in the last purchase is that, this was a long time ago, but that I got caught up in like solving the problem and dealing with it and being a caretaker, being the money guy, and trying to figure it out. And I really, I can do simple math, but at a certain point, I'm like, I have no clue. And so to fall into being responsible for that end of it is extremely stressful. So imagining duplicating that old process, which was me, in my role as caretaker or as I'll solve it, my guy role, my older brother role. Wow, that just didn't seem like any fun at all. Because then I start getting really nervous. Have I done the right thing? Is this the right broker? Yeah, loan amount, fill in the blank, it could be anything. So it was kind of cool just to go, we can buy a house. I feel happy buying a house. As long as I can feel happy doing it. And if it moves into a state of like stress, late, behind, unclear, overpaying, any of those stressors, I'm like, well, just no thanks. I'm happy right now with my rent.
Well,
So,
where would you think those stressors would come from?
excuse me?
Where would those stressors that you just spoke of come from?
Well, if Deborah wasn't here, I'd say it was coming from her.
Yeah, which she is.
Oh, she's here.
Right,
Well, no, as I said, they would be coming from my own role as like the smart guy that can figure it out, or,
and that's the role you've given up.
well, yeah, of course. I mean,
Yeah, right.
that would be the goal of that. I mean, I guess I'm stating this to state the intention
Yeah,
that, sitting here in the group, I feel really relaxed. I feel happy sharing this with you. And that's the mood or the intention I have for whatever comes next. Buy a house, don't buy a house, go home and get dinner.
Perfect,
It's all
exactly.
just have fun.
That's right. This is it. This right here, right now, except what's in your mind, there's just the flow. There's just you. And the paper you can't understand, you hand it to the broker or to Deborah. I mean, the way in which we impose on ourselves,
Yeah.
the suffering is just like,
Yeah,
no need for that. Good for you.
Thank you, Jean. Laura and then, Robert.
Hey, everybody. Hi, Polly.
Hi.
So it's so interesting you were talking about the victim stuff because I almost raised my hand in the beginning and said, oh, can you talk about this? Because I've been feeling like such a victim lately. And I've been feeling that there's all this fear behind it. It's so much fear. And so that's really, really interesting. And that seeing it, from what I understand what you said, then I'm in a it's my fault kind of. Rather than blaming it, I'm internally blaming myself. So that's great to work on that. And then here's the question then. So in the very beginning, you asked us to, think of something we really want and imagine we feel like we already have it. And I do this quite a bit, but I've been actually asking myself this question about that, which is, and this is, if I want something, then I'm thinking there's a place I can get to where I don't, and you say when you don't want anything or want to avoid anything, then you know you're in your true nature. So then I ask myself, why am I desiring something or imagining I have it if really, then I won't be my true nature if I even do that?
Well, there's the play of incarnation that comes with the body-mind unit. And it's not good to be against ourselves on behalf of waking up. It's, it's like as a body-mind unit, the human design, whatever, as a particular cycle in your life, wanting, say, a mate, but not having self-abandoned. See, the wanting that I was hoping that everybody would experience as if they were having it is not that longing, that kind of thing I don't have, but the whole knowing that I am everything, and within that, everything is, the man, the job, and the money would just be a part of that, because I know myself as everything, right? And then if some of that's not showing up or is showing up, there's no deficit here. There's no way to take away. So it's kind of like playing the game of a 3D reality. Desire is, I think I said this earlier, the root of desire is the Latin meaning of the father, desire, the sire. And so we create through what we're wanting, right? And as you get closer and closer to your awakened true nature, it's all of one thing. There's no lapse. It's not like I want it. Oh, here it comes. Well, I think it'll be here tomorrow. It's not like that anymore. You have exactly what I described in the meditation. You have the fullness of the fulfillment of already I am that. Yeah. So you don't use not desiring anything as a measure of awakening. You can desire something and not have any angst on it, not have any kind of equivocate, any kind of suffering with it.
So I've been still doing this, right? Every day, this desiring thing, and like I already have it feeling, but I find now I'm finding instead of wanting some situation or something, object, all I want is that feeling of freedom that comes with enlightenment and being part of my true nature. So, but I'm wondering if then it's not enough clarity to like create, because I'm just wanting something that's very not, it doesn't seem as easy to achieve.
It's phenomenal. Yeah, so just think about this. If you start off the meditation with, I want, like with Deborah and G, I want the house. Okay, the next question for yourself, if I had the house, what would I be experiencing? Well, I'd feel more secure and I'd feel like this is where I'm going to be. If I had that feeling of security like that, then what would that be? You'll get to freedom. If you keep going down this
Okay.
You see, you hear what I'm saying?
So do that rather than going to the freedom place right away.
Exactly. It's like, if I had that, what would that mean? Oh,
Okay.
you know, if I had that new red Ferrari, I could, all my friends would want to drive me places since I can't drive at all. They want to drive a new car. Well, if we were doing that, what would we be experiencing? Well, road trips on Maui. Well, that's not even possible. Road trips on Maui. So, you know, it's like, just start to unpeel what is it that's really going on. And in that, once it's gone, it's just like, yes, I am that. And that's a
Okay.
freedom, and that's a fulfillment. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, good
Okay.
work.
Makes sense. Thank you.
So before Robert, so you'd like me to send out an email to everyone asking for donations for.
For the red
our-
Ferrari.
Yes, please.
Okay, Robert.
Donations, she just might manifest one.
Yeah.
No donations.
So back to the whole, all judgment is self-judgment thing. I feel like I'm kind of on the verge of getting something or making
Mhm.
a change here. And a good example that happened just a little bit ago is, you came in just a few minutes after we started, and I appreciate that. So thank you very much, because I got just a little bit triggered, which is normally the case. Anybody comes to anything late. I get a little bit, and I've probably reduced that by 60–70% over the last couple of years, how much I get triggered. But there's still a little bit of trigger if somebody shows up late to just about anything. But what hasn't reduced at all is how much I kick Robert if Robert shows up late.
Mhm.
And so I think I just finally realized that the judgment of somebody else showing up
Right.
late
Exactly.
it doesn't start there.
No.
It starts with the judgment of Robert if I show up late
Right.
somewhere,
That's right.
at which point, ooh, that's really not nice.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, on that lens of your self-judgment, you've got that scratch, that demarcation there about late. And it was first against yourself, and now it's out there. And so that's always a calibration for you. Are they late? Why am I late? Why am I, you know, so it's like, that's relaxing out of that as a criterion because everything that we installed early on was to help us. You know, that little 5-year-old boy needed to know that if he didn't turn his paper in kindergarten on time. I mean, there's a lot of programming that's gone on that we just start to let go of. And that lens gets clearer and clearer, the way you see the world.
so
When you no longer judge yourself, you won't judge others.
how do I get past this, for instance, the self-judgment on being late? Because that's,
Yeah.
on the one hand, especially being retired and now, who cares if I'm late?
Right.
On the other
It's
hand,
expected, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when you have that as the conclusion, I should never be late, you know, that
Yeah.
thing got installed,
Yeah.
right? And then you can see that what did you believe about somebody who's late?
oh, they were not trustworthy,
Right.
not reliable, just in general, a bad person.
Exactly, that's right. So that's what got installed, and that's against yourself, and then it goes to others. All judgment is self-judgment. And so if you can forgive yourself for ever having believed that you were those things, then that will begin to clear the lens. It's like becoming aware of how this operates. You see, the way that we resolve most everything is to have a greater understanding of a larger picture. You can see how that little Robert, who had this early imprinting, grew up to believe things about himself if he was late, that he then projects onto others.
Yeah.
And so do you I was gonna say, do you still believe that?
If I'm late,
Yeah.
well, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's see, that got installed, that this is the place, then we go back in the 6 steps to what you installed when you, and I don't know what the trigger was.
Yeah. And I don't necessarily believe that other people are bad if they show up late,
Right,
but,
but you have a
oh yeah, if I'm late, that isn't allowed.
right. Yeah. So that was the installation, that's the distortion field in the lens that you see the world through. And especially yourself.
Right.
Being late means you're bad, is that true?
Hard to wrap my head around, it's not true.
Right,
It seems true, feels true.
right.
I almost want to say it ought to be true.
There's a way that they should be or I should be, and I'm not that way.
Yeah,
Yeah, that whole judgment thing is at the heart of being triggered and seeing what you concluded that no longer serves you. You see, where I feel like you're held is that you still feel that's helpful to you. In your own behavior and in your judgment of others. You still have value there.
well, yeah, I never. This is the first time it ever occurred to me that I shouldn't have value there, that I
Right,
shouldn't
that's right.
have that.
Right, yeah, can just imagine that there's a much bigger picture that you can't know for yourself or for others. And being late is, you see, you'll always be alert to being late yourself and when other people are too, as long as you have that distortion. Being late or being on time is nothing.
And it's much easier for me to view that somebody else might have a good reason for being late,
Mhm.
but very few things rank high enough to be a reason for me to be late.
Mm. I must be on time, is that true? How do you treat yourself when you believe that that's true?
Well, as long as I'm on time, pretty well.
Uh-huh. When you're not, what happens?
Figure out like shit.
Yeah. Can you imagine that there's no intrinsic value in being on time? Can you imagine it?
Yeah.
Yes, it's just what's happening.
Seems odd, but okay.
Just since it's not that you won't be on time. I mean, most people are on time without having that as part of their self judgment. But when they're not on time, it's not the end of the world either. So it's like there's a whole bucket of freedom here for you.
I drive down the highway at 70 miles an hour to avoid being late. I mean, just that's the excuse for driving fast. Is I'm going to be late.
Right.
Or
Well, there's a payoff then, isn't there? You get to drive fast.
I'm kind of over that. But,
Good.
We're at time, whenever you guys, if you want to continue this or I'll give you a heads up.
Sit with it, Robert, because it's an imposition and it's a limitation that doesn't serve you. It actually, any self-judgment, any self-judgment we're going to project out there, and then that creates difficulties out there because the frequency is one of rejection, just as self-rejection comes with our self-judgment. So the good news is all judgment is self-judgment, so you have access to that.
Polly, is there any help in going back to the original imprinting of when that got installed? Like the inner child work?
Yeah, the 6 steps would be.
Where you go, yeah.
Yeah. You do the 6 steps on your own, don't you, Robert?
yeah.
Yeah. Have you done it with this issue?
I never, it,
It never
today's,
was an
today's the
issue.
first day it ever dawned on me. I mean, I realized that being judgmental of other people were late, that was something. I don't know if I've done 6 steps on that, but I've certainly reduced that a lot. But it's the first time I ever even occurred that it wasn't a good idea to just, you know, kick Robert as hard as I could if I'm late.
Right. Yeah, that would be, we know a few of the early childhood wounds, but I think if you just ran the 6 steps, it would, might be interesting. Because something happened.
Good. Well, I mean, I can think of a ton of things all the way up through early professional career in my 20s. You know, it just.
But it
It's
got
hard,
installed.
it's hard to imagine life without punishing Robert if he's late. That's just
Yeah, that happened really early then, right, Tina?
it's just
Yeah.
hard to even imagine
Yeah.
that, but
See what comes up when you sit with it. That would be step 4. What's the
Okay.
earliest time you remember feeling that same way?
okay,
Yeah,
all right, thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Okay, I am turning off